It's time for Football with Faria.
You got to get the offense right, and you got to be able to be aggressive. They put up 14 against the secondary. That is driving me up a freaking wall right now.
Now here's your host, Nick Faria.
Looks like my mic was muted there. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, one and all. There we go. I don't know what's going on with StreamYard today. Things are just clicking left and right. For those that are joining on for the first time, welcome. For those coming back from the last couple of days, welcome back. We have a lot to talk to about today. Pete Caroll of the Seattle Seahawks, gone. Dan Quinn, his potential replacement? Potentially. Maybe. What does that mean for other teams around the NFL? What does that mean for the New England Patriots as they continue their search and depending on what happens with Bill Belichick? Mike Vrabel is still available. Have we ever seen veteran coaches with this much pedigree on the open market like this? It's going to be really interesting in the next couple of weeks, couple of months to determine who is going to be the head coach of the Seahawks, the Falcons, the Panthers, Titans, maybe the Patriots. What happens with the Giants now? A lot to get to today. So if you got a call, you got a comment, chime in. I think the big one, though, today has to start with Pete Caroll. And I have a very special guest for you guys in a little bit. Has no affiliation with any media publication, but he is one of my best friends. And therefore, we're going to have some fun with him today. I guarantee you have no idea who he is in terms of what fan and what team he roots for. I guarantee you. Because it is so out there. It'll stun everyone when he jumps on. We're going to get to him in a little bit. We'll have some fun with him as well. But again, you guys have a comment, any questions, tune in, chime in. Happy to talk, happy to discuss, debate football. It's going to be a lot of fun. But Pete Caroll, man, you talk about a bombshell. I know Ben Allwright in Denver was kind of teasing this earlier in the week. I know a lot of people were wondering, Pete Carroll's 72 years old. What's that going to mean for him? How long is he going to continue to want to be a head coach? And it turns out that Seattle didn't really give him much of an opportunity to make that decision. This wasn't a Pete Caroll move. This was a Seattle Seahawks wanting to make a change and wanting to go to the next step, the next era of Seahawks football. And now they get rid of arguably the most charismatic, potentially, head coach across the National Football League. Very interesting. And I understand the downside to Caroll. 14 seasons, successful throughout his career. Won a Super Bowl, went to another Super Bowl. The decision to throw it on second and goal from the one in the Super Bowl cost him a potential dynasty, but he's still a very, very good head coach. He made Geno Smith relevant again. So he's going to be a very interesting name. I know he's an advisor right now in Seattle, but you don't think that's going to stick. Even Pete Caroll kind of said, he's like, no, I'd still like to coach. He still wants to do it. So I look at that. I look at the Seahawks as a prime destination. Prime destination. And quite frankly, if you really look at what prime destinations are and what they are supposed to be, Seattle's one of them. And my guest here today, a fan of the Los Angeles Chargers. His name is Jason Abdow. Jason, obviously one of my best friends. None of these guests here that have watched the show, that have followed me along, know who the hell you are. That's okay, because we're about to have a lot of fun here. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's playoff season, so that means I've got nothing to watch and root for.
Well, it's interesting. So why don't we tell our viewership here how you became a Chargers fan and how, through my infinite wisdom of I brought you to be a Chargers fan?
Well, I believe you initially wanted me to be a fan of a different team.
Yeah, you can say it's all good. I wanted to be an Eagles fan. Absolutely.
You wanted me to be an Eagles fan, you know? There's not enough Eagles fans in the Northeast for Nick. So, he was my freshman year roommate in college, and I came in as a lifelong Patriots fan, as everyone in New England except for Nick was. And he told me I couldn't be a Patriots fan anymore because I only liked them because they were good and close to me, which is true. They were like a 40-minute drive. I used to have season tickets to Gillette. The Patriots still have a special place in my heart. I always say they're my 1B team. But I decided to pick a team that had a terrible record. I think they were 4-12 that season, and we're very far away. And that was the San Diego Chargers. And here I am, all these years later. For no reason, I just let Nick bully me into supporting a team that would
bully you.
continually stomp on my heart and let me down time and time again. I could have just I could have been a Bengals fan and got to see my team go to the Super Bowl. I could have picked the other fake LA team, been a Rams fan, and seen my team win a Super Bowl. But no, I decided to be a Charger fan, not knowing just how much devastation I was going to be in for. But hey, we're going to have the most interesting offseason, I think, of pretty much any team, potentially.
So I have to stop this really quick here, Jason, because we just have breaking news in the middle of the show.
Tell me.
Incredible. We're on Football with Faria here on this Thursday, and we've got breaking news. Nick Saban retiring from Alabama.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, is this real?
This is real. ESPN senior reporter Chris Lau just tweeted it. Retiring. Nick Saban, 6 national championships, and he's gone from Alabama.
This is what I get for having my phone on Do Not Disturb while I'm
You got to get there, Jason. You got to get there. Nick Saban, man. Wow. The breaking news of the day.
Okay. All right. So as someone who has a newfound interest in college football, because I knew for a little bit that I was going to have to find a new head coach, Nick Saban, did he put a statement out? Do you think he's is this like an actual like I'm just done coaching, I've done it forever, I don't really see this team going to the national championship again, time to pass it on? Or
I have no idea. I have no idea the reasoning behind it. I have no idea what's going on with it. This is as insane a day as you can have 3 days after Black Monday. This is absurd. You have Pete Caroll leaving the Seahawks for a head coaching job. You have Nick Saban retiring. We don't know where the Chargers are going to go for the head coach. We don't know where Bill Belichick's going. We could theoretically see, guys.
Bill Belichick's going to go to Alabama, where he's always wanted to be.
Oh, Jesus. We could literally see a situation here where Bill Belichick leaves New England in the same week as Nick Saban retires from Alabama. That is just unbelievably absurd. And I'll tell you this: if we're going to talk about Nick Saban, we have to talk about him as the greatest college football coach of all time. The consistency that he had, the sheer domination that he had at Alabama. And it wasn't just at Alabama. He won a national title with LSU. He was successful everywhere he went in college. And I think he could have been a good football coach in the National Football League had he been given more time with Miami. But Nick Saban retiring, that's got to be the biggest surprise out of anything that's happened, including Pete Caroll. And Pete Carroll's 72 years old.
Yeah, the idea of getting Pete Caroll retiring, and that's only the third most impressive head coach retiring in a week, if Bill Belichick goes away.
Oh, gee. Okay, yeah, so that's fair. If Belichick goes away, absolutely. Absolutely.
The fact that he would automatically get the third wheel there, that's pretty sad. But I would kind of guess that this is it for Saban. I can't imagine that he's retiring and it's like, okay, let's give the Titans a try now.
No, I think Saban learned he's not going back to the NFL at all. He'll never go back to the NFL. Maybe he coaches, his kids. I'm looking at his age right now. You know how old Nick Saban is?
I gotta guess I was gonna say
he is
about
Pete Carroll's age.
Yeah,
he's Pete Carroll's age. And both of them are gone from their head coaching jobs. That is absurd to me.
And how old is Belichick?
Oh, God.
I think he's 71,
He's
right?
got to be older.
No, I think he's 71. It might be that might be the time to retire from coaching.
He's 71. Well done.
There we go.
Yeah, so it seems once you hit 70, it starts the timer, man. The timer. But I think Belichick, even if he leaves New England, he's gonna go and coach somewhere else. And this is kind of why I wanted to bring you on, Jason, because as a Chargers fan, as our resident Chargers fan on Football with Faria, who do you want to be your new head coach? Who do you want as running this staff above all else?
Look, I think there are a few factors that are going to go into it. We also have a GM we need to look for. And the team that he wants to assemble, assumably with the head coach, that's going to be very important. And, when they fired the GM and the head coach and all of a sudden the Belichick buzz started coming, that was exciting for a minute until I, remembered how the Patriots have been the last few years. And I just don't think that is something I would want for the Chargers at this point. We're right now a very old team and a very cap-heavy team. And we just need a GM who's going to, figure out how to phase out some of the old guard and really pick solid young talent. Like, we're looking at potentially getting up to 10 people in this upcoming draft. Like, we're really going to have to be smart with our picks, and having the fifth pick is going to be helpful there. And I just don't see Belichick. If he wanted to come on and do anything as a GM, that would be, I think, a total disaster.
I'm sure Jeff would sign up for it just to get him out of Foxborough. I mean, come on. Jeff fans here have been clamoring to finally beat him. They do in the final game of the year, albeit costing themselves a potential top 5 pick. And yet here we are with potentially Belichick leaving anyway.
Yeah, I personally, I don't think I knew that they weren't going to get rid of Belichick on Black Monday. I feel like they thought that it would feel kind of weird to just kind of like throw him out with everyone else. I think they're going to kind of drag it on a little before they make the decision. He doesn't seem very eager to leave, and that worries me. If I'm a Charger fan looking at Belichick, like, I really want a head coach that is going to breathe a lot of fresh life into the franchise and not just kind of stumble into it like, oh, I guess I have to go here now. So yeah, I mean, I'm not alone. I'm sure this is the betting favorite and probably the fan favorite, but right now I'm definitely hot on Jim Harbaugh as the head coach. I really think that's, we moved to LA. No secret, we have this beautiful new stadium that we struggled to fill up with our own fans. We got the franchise quarterback, and we have, pieces like Keenan Allen, Joey Bosa, who've been there forever that people still really appreciate. But the franchise as a whole, they are really like missing that fan identity. I don't have other Chargers fans to really talk to. It's a very limited fan base. As much as their social media likes to make memes, it always feels like it's kind of it's like maybe the 30th to 32nd biggest franchise in terms of their fans. The enthusiasm just never there. I've gone to SoFi, and I got booed going to my seat at a Chargers home game. I mean, that is where
doesn't get much worse than that.
And Staley, at the time, first year was what it was. He tried to bring some exciting energy, but it definitely wasn't what we needed. And now hearing from the owners that they are willing to spend big on a coach and a GM, go for Harbaugh. I've heard that Michigan's gonna go. The number to beat is about $15 million for him. That's about what a Ben Johnson or a Dan Quinn would probably be taking anyway. I see no reason not to go for that.
Talking about Chargers potential head coaching jobs, we talked about Pete Caroll, but obviously the big news right now is Nick Saban retiring from college football. Where is he on the all-time list of college coaches? Where is he in terms of just regular standard coaches of any major sport on the planet? I think he's certainly got to be up there. We talk about, John Wooden, Pop Warner, Belichick, Lombardi. There's a lot of guys out there that have done a really great job with their organizations, and they have not won to the level that Nick Saban has done. And I know Saban, because he went to Alabama, because he's the guy that brought in the dynasty as big, if not bigger, than Bear Bryant did. It is a new day in football. The old guard, if you will, as Jason said. The old guard here is currently heading out the door. Great comment here from Lake Jets fan. Dude, out with the 70-year-old coaches. I love it. There's going to be a lot of young guys here. Maybe I put my head in the ring. Head, hat,
you should do it,
whatever
Nick.
the hell
Go
it is.
for it.
Listen, I told you before. I think I could coach. Maybe I'd have to change the system a little bit to make sure I can run a college scheme, but I can do it. Hey,
I also believe that you believe you can coach.
This has been an argument now for close to a decade with our group, and I will pound the table that I could get the Jets to maybe 8, 9, 10 wins. We can get a playoff spot my first year. I would hire a great offensive coordinator. I'd hire a great defensive coordinator, and I would do the Mike Tomlin of keeping everyone on the same page and just making the right challenge, the right timeouts at the right times. Boom. I can do the job.
Are you willing to interview with the Los Angeles Chargers, though?
I ain't going to Los Angeles, I'll tell you that.
So they're interviewing everyone right now. I think you could get an interview.
I'm not going to Los Angeles. There are some places I will not travel to, and Los Angeles is number one on that list. I've been to Greece, went to Greece on my honeymoon. I've gone to Florida. I've gone pretty much everywhere on the East Coast, and I really prefer the East Coast over everything else.
Oh, you gotta go to LA, man. It is really nice. It's a very laid back atmosphere. I think
it's on a fault line. Like any minute, you're gonna get an earthquake, and then all that crap happens.
Yeah, but you get Justin Herbert.
Okay, I'm not a Chargers fan. Justin Herbert is not the top quarterback of his draft class. He's not even the top 2, in my opinion.
I mean, that's very debatable.
I understand you hate Joe Burrow. I understand it. But we're talking about that draft class, and that is probably the best modern quarterback class that we've had since probably the 04 one with Eli, Ben Roethlisberger, and Phillip Rivers. But Jalen Hurts has done what every other quarterback has not been able to do during that time. Stay healthy, play at a high level, play at an MVP caliber, and lead his team to a Super Bowl.
That's fair. You know what? That's fair. But, man, I'm thinking of the alternate timeline. If we were smart, we fired Staley after that embarrassing Jaguars game last year. We get Shane Steichen instead. And I think it's a different conversation.
I miss you, Shane. I miss you, Shane.
I think if we got Shane back,
I miss him so much.
Why
don't you just get Sirianni too? Apparently, Eagle fans are calling for his head still.
You know what? I'm curious where you're at with that.
I find it ridiculous. I said it yesterday on the show. I find it unbecoming of Philadelphia. I love the city. I love their fan base. They're passionate. But this is probably the lowest that I've ever felt of the Philadelphia Eagles fan base, where people are calling for a head coach's job after an 11-6 year and 3 straight playoff appearances a year after a Super Bowl appearance.
And
I don't get it.
The playoffs are not set in stone yet. I know it's been a rough last 5 games, but
it's really bad. The defense is really bad, and it's gotten really bad overall.
It's a Matt Patricia curse.
Patriots
had it last year.
Absolutely, everyone could have seen that coming a mile away. But if they hire a good defensive coordinator next year, why would I want a new staff being brought in? They're going to hire one anyone, and we're going to get to one of those names in a little bit. But if you're the Eagles, you're 11-6. It's not like you were the Chargers that went 5-12, and Brandon Staley got progressively worse each and every year. Staley and Sirianni were hired the same year, and people were lauding the hiring for Los Angeles because Staley was a defensive mind. They considered him the defensive side to Sean McVay, young, energetic, very intelligent, and it just blew up in his face. And Nick Sirianni had the horrific first press conference and got to the Super Bowl, has been to the playoffs 3 straight years. What more could you ask for in that situation?
I will argue that I think if you're looking just at first seasons, Staley was his first year, I would argue, like a pretty solid coach.
Well, what they go 9-8?
They went 9-8, but they, in classic Chargers fashion, a couple of close losses, but they were beating some very good teams in that time, including the Eagles.
Philadelphia was, but that's the thing though. Philadelphia talent-wise wasn't nearly as good as they were. They got to the playoffs because they were well coached. That's why.
And I think, look, Staley over time, he got in his own head. He was exciting at first. He, the whole we're gonna go for it on 4th down, and it would play dividends in some of the closer games, and blow up in our faces other times. And then, he was definitely listening to the people around him. Oh, make sure you get a little more conservative. Make sure that, and by this most recent season, we obviously know what happened. They were losing every game by at least, they would have been like 10-1 at the beginning of the season if they had just started every game with 4 extra points. But he just couldn't ever execute. And then when we saw without him and without Herbert, obviously at the same time, still nothing against Gift Smith. I'm sure he tried, but I think he knows he's staying with the team, and he wouldn't hate it if he had a better draft pick. It was like those same issues, like they can't score in the red zone. And without Herbert, you just saw how bad that, the defense showed up when it needed to sometimes. But you just saw how
the Jets.
They showed up against the Jets
this year and just blew them out of the water.
But I mean, in the post Herbert injury, the Easton Stick era, outside of the obvious 63-21 game, outside of that, we saw just how abysmal that offense was. We saw everything that people had been saying for not years, but all season about Austin Eckler, and how, okay, maybe Keenan Allen, who, is now in his 30s, how he's carrying this team as a wide receiver, probably not the best idea. And then, okay, now finally we can see what Quentin Johnson has. Nothing. And we just saw how much help that offense needs, because it seemed like they were always a strong offense when we had Herbert. And I think that's why it's going to be one of the top coaching destinations. You have that proven quarterback, and I just think that you have a fun defense. I just think there's a lot of fun to be had with that team. It's in a great location. I don't know anyone besides Nick would want to move out there.
No way in hell. No way in hell. It's on a fault line. No, thank you. If you're on a fault line, I want nothing to do with that destination.
That's your prerogative. We don't want you anyway.
I got a comment here from, looks like a guy named Kevin. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that this is someone that I know. How is life with Jalen Hurts now? If this is the Kevin that I think, we know he's a Colts fan. So are the Colts really making fun of an 11-6 team after they blew a home game for the potential division title?
I'm not worried. I think the Colts are going to have a great step up year next season.
They could, but a lot of things have to go right for them. The Texans are still good. The Jaguars are good. The Titans are rebuilding, but they're the 3rd team now in that division, and there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to have that success with Anthony Richardson in year 2 coming off major knee surgery. Life with Jalen Hurts is pretty good.
Question about Jalen Hurts is going to be fine.
Jalen Hurts is fine, guys. 2nd in the league in total touchdowns. Arguably the most unstoppable play in NFL history. Why am I worried about Jalen Hurts? I'm worried about my defense. I'm not worried about my offense. What are we doing here?
Yeah, it looks like you're keeping all your major pieces for a bit.
Yeah, we got them all under contract. It doesn't make any sense. But speaking about those Eagles, as we near the 30-minute mark of our program today, near it, 25, 30 minutes, whatever. The other big news today is that Wink Martindale is now gone from the New York Giants officially. And the big difference here, and the big piece that I want everyone listening to understand, is the language of the contract. If Wink Martindale resigned, and he was allowed to resign by the Giants, The Giants could block him to any place that he wanted to be hired from. Instead, the Giants and Wink agreed to mutually part ways, and that's significant because the Giants no longer owe Martindale his $3 million signing bonus, and Martindale can choose the team of his choice. And there is a team that, when I say desperate doesn't really begin to describe the problems that they are having. But if I need to drive a double-decker bus to East Rutherford, pick up Martindale, or he's in Florida now, take a flight, drive him back up from Florida to the NovaCare complex, and sign a contract whenever the Eagles are eliminated, probably on Monday, I will gladly do it. It's a no-brainer hire for Wink Martindale to join the Philadelphia Eagles as a defensive coordinator. First off, and the first example is this. It worked once with James Bradbury. When James Bradbury was cut by the New York Giants, everyone was saying this is a Pro Bowl corner, still has something left in the tank, should be a pretty good player. Philadelphia, could if they have the cap space for him. They found a way to bring him in. They go to the Super Bowl. Is James Bradbury having as good a year as he had last year? Of course not. Quite frankly, he's been pretty damn bad. But you can't take away from that first year of dominance. The second year hasn't been good, but if you're going to talk about retread defensive players and coaches for the Giants, this is the guy you want. If you're looking for Jim Johnson reincarnate, blitz, Wink Martindale is your guy. This is a very exciting time, and this is why I want to do a show every single day, because this news is always changing. On Monday, it was Black Friday, and we were talking about the final day of Jets coaches, talking about keeping the entire staff. On Tuesday, it was more firings and more questions about the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. And today, I believe, is still Wednesday, which means Bill Belichick, Pete Caroll, Nick Saban, all potentially on the outs. Incredible to think about. But for the Eagle fans sitting here, let me know what you think. You guys want Wink Martindale as a defensive coordinator? I would like that. I think, Jason, if you have Jim Harbaugh and you get him in the Chargers building, if you get Harbaugh in the Chargers building, I'm sure you would sign up for Wink Martindale for your defensive coordinator.
Look, if I get a Harbaugh Martindale combo, I'm not complaining.
That's as good a combo as you're going to ever get.
Yeah, I think even despite, the Giants having the letdown season, and clearly things ended brutal in New York between him and Daboll. And I guess that would be my only concern. I don't know the inner workings of that, the inner politics of that organization. Obviously, it seemed like rather toxic at the end. I don't know who that goes on. And, that's could be something to think about. But look, if he's looking for an organization that is kind of already proven themselves to be solid and already has great players, yeah, like I can totally understand why he, can just move a little further south from New York and want to go to Philly. It makes total sense to me, and they're going to be on the market for it. So,
make me very happy. Would make me very happy.
On paper, it is the one piece you guys would need to go right back to being contender, which is annoying as a non-Eagles fan. But
I'd still say they're contenders now. It's just a matter of they're not that top echelon of contender.
They are one of the 14 teams technically still contending. And I would still argue that they're the favorites on Monday.
I don't think so.
They're lucky because
look, the season's over. The season's over.
Okay.
They're not winning the Super Bowl. They're not beating Dallas. They're not beating San Francisco. The ceiling is beating Tampa Bay if they can get there. It's done. There's no championship aspirations. They can still do this. They can still turn it around. But I'm also a realist in saying, listen, the season might be over, but they're also a team coming off a Super Bowl loss. Most of the time, those losing teams don't make it back to this point at all.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're here, okay, thank you. Get a new coordinator, get new this, get new that, and you move on from there. I think there's too many times in the modern NFL where fans, they have unrealistic expectations, and it just blows up in their face, and then they want immediate responses. And sometimes the immediate responses are not the answer.
Would you argue that getting Wink Martindale would be an immediate response to that to your defense problem?
He would be an immediate response, but it wouldn't be a reactionary one. And I think that's
fair.
probably the biggest thing. Because you don't want to be reactionary either. I can't talk tonight. Go figure.
No, you're fine.
But how's everything going? So, with the Chargers,
yes,
you're in a division with arguably the best quarterback in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a division with a head coach in the Raiders that could potentially be brought back in Antonio Pierce that is essentially a player on the field.
Yes.
And you have, I'm trying to think of the other team here, and the Denver Broncos with Sean Payton.
Look, it's a very weird situation because a couple of years ago, or really last year, you saw what the Raiders were building when they took on Devontae Adams, and maybe Josh McDaniels could be good again. Clearly not, obviously. And then you saw the Russell Wilson, Sean Payton thing, and it seemed like, I remember everyone's like, nobody knows who's going to win the AFC West. And then don't overthink it. It's always Chiefs. But now it's in a very weird place because pretty much every team besides the Chiefs, and to the Chiefs to a weird extent because they're not the Chiefs that they have been at the moment. Like every team seems to be a little in flux. Half of the teams don't have a coach. Half the teams don't have a quarterback. Let's be real. Like Jarrett Stidham's not going to be the guy for the Broncos. Clearly, they want a franchise quarterback, and I'm willing to bet they're going to trade up for one. And I think the Raiders, I do think they're going to stick with Antonio Pierce. I think that the only reason they wouldn't is if they could get a Harbaugh. But I don't think Harbaugh wants to work with a team that has Jimmy Garoppolo and AOC as their quarterbacks. I think they also need to figure out what to do at that position. And look, I mean, Jets have been dying to get Devontae Adams. If they lose that piece, I mean, that offense is. You got Josh Jacobs and what else,
I don't think Antonio Pierce. If Antonio Pierce comes back, Devontae Adams isn't getting traded because I don't think Devontae Adams would want to leave Vegas in the first place. But speaking about those same Jets, Aaron Rodgers.
Oh yeah,
what a guy. Done with Pat McAfee for the rest of the NFL season. We'll see him probably after training camp or before training camp or whatever it is. But when you look at the franchise, and I see a lot of Jets fans, some analysts, they always talk about the passiveness. And I've mentioned it before on many shows, myself, my own, Jake Asman's included. But the passiveness that they have had, where the Chargers, they made a move and changed their head coach. And it seems like they're going to be bringing in a brand new staff from top to bottom. The Seahawks went 9-8, 8-9, whatever it was, finished near or above 500, and they fired their head coach. They walked away from Pete Caroll.
Well, we don't know for sure, but
we'll get.
They're looking for fresh later.
Mike Vrabel, 2 bad years, but in between some excellent seasons with the Tennessee Titans, and Tennessee is looking for fresh air. The fact that the Jets haven't made a move with Robert Saleh, with Joe Douglas, with Nathaniel Hackett and Keith Carter and all these other different coaches. Jason, you're not a Jets fan. You're not an analyst.
I follow them.
You're not in the room. But if you're looking at this from a fan perspective, if you are another fan of another team trying to talk Jets fans off the ledge, what do you say when it comes to that?
Hey, remember how good Aaron Rodgers was 2 years ago? Like that's really
that's fair.
And that's really and it's fair because that's clearly it's from my outsider's perspective, it seems like the entire season has been, oh man, we really set this up really well for Rodgers. And yeah, we could make some moves, but let's take our word for it. Like this season would have been a Super Bowl season if Rodgers stayed in, and we're just gonna run it back and do what we're supposed to do in 2023 and 2024. I don't know if that's the smartest move. I mean, look, Rodgers is obviously a Hall of Famer. He's going to go down as probably a top 10 all-time quarterback, despite, what people say about the Super Bowls. But he's older, and you guys are probably going to get a really hot offensive tackle. I think the O-line is going to see a little bit of improvement, but in terms of the office is concerned and the coaching staff, the total stubbornness to move away from anything just to kind of keep Aaron Rodgers happy, I assume. Look, I just don't think any team with Nathaniel Hackett is going to the Super Bowl, personally.
Nathaniel Hackett. You're that harsh on Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, listen, I get it. He didn't go to the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers.
From an outsider. I could be wrong. Clearly, Aaron Rodgers loves him.
But this is why I want you on, Jason, because I can bring in a guest that has insight, and Jet fans are still going to be upset about it. Yeah. I want to see the other side of the coin. I can
make Jet fans mad. Don't worry.
Well, we don't. There's not really even a need to, because I know Jet fans aren't happy with Nathaniel Hackett. They're not happy that Robert Saleh has brought them back for another year. Hackett, Carter, Todd Downing, all these other guys. But I think this is where, and I've been saying this over and over again now for a couple of shows, it's not the end of the world. It never is when you have a Hall of Fame franchise quarterback at your disposal. The reason why the Chargers are going to be back next year and playing at a high level is because of Justin Herbert. It's not because of another coach coming in. It's because they have a franchise quarterback at their disposal. Philadelphia was the worst defense in football this year, had problems up the wazoo, structural issues on offense, locker room concerns, and they still won 11 games. Why? Because they have Jalen Hurts. The Patriots, during their dynasty, they had Tom Brady. With Jet fans all around, you have Aaron Rodgers. And I said this before, if you look at the schedule, and you look at last year's schedule, and you look at their losses, they lost 10 games. Now, does Aaron Rodgers get you to 13, 14 wins with that schedule? Probably not. Probably not. More than likely not. New system. He's learning new teammates. There was going to be an adjustment period anyway. But do they beat the Patriots the first time when Zach Wilson just refused to throw the football? I think so. Jason, I think you would agree with that.
Oh, I'd absolutely agree. We almost lost it with Zach Wilson playing.
And that's the thing. I think they beat the Raiders when they lost, 16-12? Because when they had an offensive touchdown.
What was that stretch without an offensive touchdown? It was like 9 quarters? 13
quarters. Yeah, something like that.
No, Aaron Rodgers wanted to let that happen, especially with Garrett Wilson and, I assume he probably would have figured out how to use McCole Hardman.
That's another one.
He would have gone guys like him and Conklin, all these offensive guys that, all season I was just hearing people complain about how they weren't used. Dalvin Cook was his own issue.
Yeah.
But, I think, Aaron Rodgers is a guy who utilizes his offense a little better. And I think, to your point about the quarterback, I do think, having a Hall of Famer at your disposal is very important. But I do kind of foresee this being an ongoing issue. I don't think he's going to obviously lose an entire season again. But yes, I can see next year being a.
We got a comment here from Mindy. Mindy, great comment. Great comment. Coming after the Chargers fan. This is what I wanted to see. I want to see pitchforks at the door.
I'm entitled as a Chargers fan. Like, I haven't won anything either.
Listen, I guess I've been to the playoffs. Right now.
I've got to see some playoff appearances, I guess. But, trust me, you didn't want to see the playoff game I had to see last year.
Well, that's an interesting debate there. You talk about the Jets, talk about the Chargers. If you're Jet fans, do you want to go 7-10, miss the playoffs entirely, or suffer through, a 27-0 lead, and then blown in the second half and lost on the road to a Jacksonville Jaguars team?
Which one would you prefer? Look, I think Jet fans do have a lot to be happy for. I do think Saleh is going to be, he's clearly a great coach. I don't yeah, anyone who thinks that I would agree with. But I would also say like there's nothing wrong with getting a second quarterback in there. I think that was a major issue was the refusal to Zach Wilson. I can't imagine he's on the team next year. And Trevor Siemian did kind of what he needed to toward the end of the year against the Patriots and some bad teams. I don't think there's anything wrong because there is a good chance that Rodgers gets hurt for a week or two, and they need a QB2 to step in there. I do think they kind of need a solid guy. And look, Rodgers is he's 40 now, 41. I know he says he's trying to do at least 2 seasons with the Jets, but that is a very narrow window. 2 years, and he can't. Brady couldn't even play into his mid 40s. I don't think Rodgers is going to be on the Jets for 5 years. And
seems like he wants to. Seems like he's going to want to.
He's going to want to.
He's going to want to play for a couple more years.
But I do think it is it's in a weird situation because you haven't really seen him play for the Jets, but you need to look forward to him, but also look forward beyond him just because of his age and potentially being injury prone. Especially depending on how quickly you can get your offensive line together.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting for the Jets. It's going to be interesting for a lot of teams. We have one question here from the beginning of the show from Payne, which I feel you right now. Fire Saleh and bring in Pete. I'm interested. Jet fans, would you consider bringing back Pete Caroll as the head coach if that means firing Robert Saleh? Because I think a lot of people kind of forget that Pete Caroll started his head coaching gig in the NFL with a couple of different stints, and they didn't exactly go that well. He went to USC, built a dynasty there, but that 1 year in New York didn't exactly go well, and we think that he's going to be able to fix everything right away. Yikes.
And also, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about Aaron Rodgers' window. You only have so many years, and to bring in a 72-year-old head coach who would be new to the organization, I mean, new in terms of the last couple of decades. I just don't think it's not time you have to kind of get everything in order.
Look, I love the ideas. I'm never going to say no to them. Pete Caroll is not going back to the Jets in any circumstance. Nor should they want them. Nor should the Jets want him, because if you're going to go after a new head coach, you don't want Caroll. You want Harbaugh, Bieniemy, Vrabel.
Would Vrabel betray his Patriots?
Went to Tennessee. He ended the Patriots dynasty once and for all. We joke all the time about Ryan Fitzpatrick being the one, but Mike Vrabel sent Brady to Tampa Bay in a playoff game in Foxborough.
That's fair enough.
I don't think there's anything to go with Vrabel in any capacity about the Patriots, because remember, he didn't start his career with the Patriots either.
That is true. That is true.
So I don't think there's any loyalty that Vrabel would have coming back to New England when he was a coach for Houston and a coach for Tennessee and a player for Pittsburgh and a player for the Patriots. There's a lot of different avenues there that go along with that I just don't see it happening. But Jason, I appreciate you for jumping on today and talking some football with me. Do you have any points, concerns, questions about the show or anything going on currently in life?
Look, I was telling this to you. I think I feel like I, as a Chargers fan, I can kind of connect with the Jets fans in this. I was kind of saying this with you earlier. We're kind of in this vicious cycle where every offseason we're looking forward to the regular season. Regular season hits, it's really sad. And then we're like, oh, I guess I can see some other teams get into the playoffs and maybe I can bandwagon. But at the end of the day, it's not the same. And now the playoffs are here. And, I just want to see the postseason and see who we're going to get and what's going to happen, what moves we're going to make. And hopefully this cycle ends for one of us eventually. Maybe we can see one of our teams. The AFC is going to be stacked next year. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to be as stacked as people think. I really don't. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But Jason, I appreciate your time. Appreciate you jumping on the show today. And I'll see you this weekend for the playoffs, no?
We'll be watching.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, buddy. That was Jason Abdow. No affiliation whatsoever. But that's okay, because we're here to talk football. And any fan who wants to talk about football is welcome on this show. Any fan. So if you are Packers, Vikings, you want to be a Giants fan, come on here and argue with me. Go right ahead. I'll have to probably talk about if we're going to allow Cowboys fans on here. Probably will. Probably will, especially if they lose on Sunday to Green Bay. Not going to happen. But I'm pulling for the Packers, man. Pulling for the Packers big time. Big time. We're at the 45-minute mark. It's almost 6 o'clock, so I'm going to start logging off for the day. For those that were watching, thank you guys so much. A lot of news today. Nick Saban retiring. Mike Vrabel still out there. Pete Caroll gone from Seattle. We'll continue to have shows. We're going to have one tomorrow as well. We'll probably dive deeper into what's next for Nick Saban and Alabama and what's going to happen to the coaching carousel now that the top spot in college football is available. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. We'll probably go around the same time. Thank you guys all for watching. Have a great night. We'll see you guys tomorrow.